Welcome to the Weekly Tech Hangout. This week my guest is Mr. Lorne Pike, who is the, founder of Lorne, Pike & Associates.
That would be me.
And kind of the guy who runs the show there, does a lot of social media strategy and consulting. So I'm going to, first of all, just ask Lorne to go ahead and introduce himself and tell us about what he does.
Hi, I'm Lorne Pike. I'm the founder of Lorne, Pike & Associates. I'm a social media and search engine optimization and small business marketing consultant, I guess is the best way to summarize it. And I just help companies find their footprint and find the open door in social media and online.
So what is your original training and background in before the internet?
Actually, used to, years ago, back, over 20 years ago now, that's amazing, but used to work in a television station and kind of a community TV station. Used to do a lot of work with community groups, helping them find their voice and figure out what their messaging was. And just had a lot of them talk to me and kind of say, gee, how do you get good at this? You know, you know what you're doing more than most people we talk to. And, people would ask if they could hire me to help them out and so on. And I just kind of, I don't know, something kind of clicked inside, and I began to wonder. So it just kind of took shape over the years, and eventually got to the point where I thought, no, I'd like to try this on my own.
Yeah.
So I headed out the door, and I've kind of changed directions about 10 times since the 80s, because the Internet wasn't really big in 89.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, that's what the next question I wanted to ask you, as a guy who's seen the transition from no Internet to lots of Internet. At what point did you kind of hear about, and notice the Internet and say, this is a great tool for branding and marketing?
Well, it's a great question, Carl. And it's funny because we almost forget what it was like to research before the Internet, because I'm thinking back, how did I hear about it when there was no computer to hear it from? I probably read it in a newspaper or something, I don't remember. But I remember hearing about this company called CompuServe. And this was, I'm guessing, 93. And it might have been 92, 94, but some early 90s. And I remember hearing about this company and just was intrigued by this idea that you could actually dial in and, share ideas and type and have people type back to you. So I tried. I remember it was one night late at night. I was sitting in my office, and I was just completely hooked. Just the ability to go through these files and find documents about marketing ideas and download them, and it would only take 15 minutes to get your document. It was just incredible. It just blew me away. I just thought, my gosh, the world is changing. It was a whole new ballgame.
Yeah. Well, and then the really big innovation in the Internet that we've seen in the last 5 to 10, 15 years, somewhere in that, span, is social media. So, as you're kind of, as I remember exploring the Internet, having my first little GeoCities site and all that kind of good stuff, at what point did you sort of start to define social media for yourself and say, this is an even better tool for branding? I mean, was it Facebook? Was it before that?
First social media site that I joined was, I believe, LinkedIn. Back, it was 2006, and again, just something you hear about and it makes sense to you. I was doing some marketing for a company, and I was down in Atlanta, and I was sitting in the hotel room just looking for ways to connect with people, and I just kept coming across LinkedIn a few times, and I just started reading up on it. I thought, this just makes a whole lot of sense. So I talked to the client, and they thought it made sense, so I created an account there for myself, and I represented the client there for the first few years. But, had a chance to kind of get my feet on the ground there. And, of course, LinkedIn then was a completely different animal than it is now. Yes, so much more closed, so much more restricted, and so much more strict about what you could and couldn't do. And I think that's good and bad. I think, unfortunately, it's gotten quite a bit spammier lately, as all things do. But I enjoyed LinkedIn, had a chance to make some good connections there, and really kind of got bitten with the bug right there. But I think for me it was Twitter. I think I signed up for Twitter in 2008, I think. And then, like everybody does, you look at it, you got a blank screen, you scratch your head thinking,
right.
Yeah, and then you leave it alone for a month or two, and then something happens, and you go back and you try it again. And I remember actually I did some reading. I thought, okay, well, it's got to make sense. Enough people are talking about it. There's like 1 million members at that point, so you're thinking this is huge. So I dug down some articles from Guy Kawasaki actually, and he had a couple nice articles there on how to break it, how to get started, and some good advice there. And I tried it, and it didn't take long. I'd say within a few hours of starting to play with it, you start to put the dots together, and you think, wow, yeah, this, you got that moment again, like I had with CompuServe, where your mind starts to run, and you think, this is, a new ball game here. Yeah.
Right, definitely.
And
yeah.
I still love Twitter. I think Twitter's fabulous.
Yeah, I think I kind of did the same thing with Twitter. I started out and I was like, I don't get this. I'm not going to use this. I don't know anybody here. And then next thing you know, like a few months later, I'm meeting new clients and like meeting new people in town. I was like, this is awesome. So anyway, it's funny you mentioned Guy Kawasaki. So this ties right into where I was going next, which is entrepreneurship. And first of all, I assume you've read a lot of, or quite a bit of Guy's stuff around the time. What's your favorite of his books or works?
That's a good question. I get bits of. I tend to be a little bit attention deficit disorder, I think, in the way how I read a lot of things, then jump from one to another. I actually haven't read Enchantment yet. I hear it's quite good. I haven't had a chance to read that yet, but I'm hoping to get into it soon. Gosh, one of his earlier books I really got hooked on. I just remember the vision he had in one of his, it might even been his first book. I don't recall the name now. But this was back around that time, back maybe mid to late 90s. Yeah. But I just liked his story and his way of seeing things. And, of course, everything that had Apple, which is fabulous. Yeah. Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of The Art of the Start. I think that's the only one of his I've read completely. Like you said, I kind of jump around too, and yeah. But it hooked me, and I know I've got to get into more of his stuff at some point. But I'm interested to hear along those lines about what entrepreneurship in Canada is like. You started off your own business. I'm guessing you were already located up there.
Yeah, this is my home. I'm living about 5 blocks away from where I grew up as a kid, and that's kind of the Newfoundland way. We tend traditionally to be much more settled than a lot of places. So yeah, my brothers. I've got 6 brothers and sisters, and half of them live within a 5-minute drive of me, and we tend to stay very close to home here.
What is? I'm curious to know if entrepreneurship in Canada is. Have you run into any problems that are kind of unique to the country or the area you live in, or are there any? Is it different in any way that you perceive?
That's a great question, and actually a lot of people ask me that when we're in the States. People will often ask me, what's happening in Canada or how's it different than the U.S. I'm a twin. I've got a twin sister, so I grew up as a twin, and I'm always intrigued when people say to me, well, what's it like to be a twin? And of course your answer is, well, what's it like to not be a twin? This is all I've got, so it's all I know. So it's kind of hard for me to say how it's different. Yeah. But Canada's just so eclectic. We've got so many different realities. Life in Toronto is a whole lot different than life in St. John's or Prince Edward Island or somewhere. No, as a general rule, I think I'm probably safer to answer the question, what's it like to be small town Canada or a small province Canada? Yeah, we're on the extreme East Coast. It's a lot smaller area here, and social media hasn't really caught on big in some ways here like it has in other places. Facebook is huge. Facebook is everywhere, of course. Right. We have seen very little of Twitter here in terms of any kind of a mass following. Everybody's aware of it, but it's more the starting level here for a lot of people. So you're still trying to explain what it is and what the rationale is behind it and how it could benefit a business to be there.
Well, then, in that line, how was it going into, or now that you've made the kind of switch into social media as kind of your main drive, how is it to explain to clients who are in this rural area where very few people use Twitter, what do you do to get them involved in it, even though it's tough to tell them the benefit right away?
Yeah. I think they want to hear some evidence of how has it benefited someone else? What's happening out there? Does it really make connections? And of course, the reality is social media is not everything to everyone. There are some companies where it actually may not be as beneficial as some other things are doing. But I think a lot fewer than a lot of people realize. Because that's kind of the first thing some people say is, well, social media is not really for us. But I think even companies in small areas, companies that have never really considered social media, still can derive a whole lot of benefit from them that they've just never considered. I mean, there's no reason to think that they're always doomed to serve a very small market. You know,
Right.
there are huge opportunities that social media would open up to start exporting or mail or, you know, online delivery or whatever the case would be, that I'm sure a lot of companies have never ever considered.
Yeah.
It takes the dream of export from being this very distant image that you've heard the big companies do to something that I think virtually any company can do. So yeah, it's very much a leveling field. It's got tremendous potential to take small companies into a much bigger market.
So moving back kind of towards what you do at this point with SEO, I see SEO changing in a big way because of some of Google's latest updates, and a lot of SEO marketers are like freaking out. You know, they're not sure. They think Google's either ruining it or they're saving it. I mean, they all have strong opinions. Where do you see this going in the end here? What's the big goal of SEO?
I think it has to be a lot more integrated than some people think of it as. You know, when I do social media for a company, it's hard not to bring in some elements of SEO. When you do SEO, it's hard not to bring in some elements of social media.
Right.
It's very much intertwined. And even search engines, I think themselves are completely changing. Some people love what Google has been doing, although not many, I'm guessing. But you know, they love that ability to personalize your search and to kind of try to read your mind in terms of where you've been before and what you've done and what you're looking for, which is great if you're looking for more of the same stuff. But if you're trying to stretch your horizons, if you're trying to get out and discover new brands and see what else Java means besides either coffee or a search engine, Google can really limit what you're seeing there. And unfortunately, to some degree, I think it's gone back to almost creating for us the very things that it initially thought it was going to take us away from. You know.
I'll say, you know, in my experience, I use Google to look up, you know, say like some kind of code that I need. You know, I find somebody who's done it and's got a tutorial about it. I find that the personalized results don't help for that because what I'm looking for is very specific and it's new. It's outside of, you know, who I know, and you know, they wouldn't have posted about it yet. But then there are times when the top Google search results all look like spam unless I go to the personal results. So I'm with you there. I think there's a mix of good and bad with it. We'll see where that goes, though. So, okay, let's get to Google Plus because you've kind of taken Google Plus and embraced it, at least as far as I can see. I assume you still use, though, Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, I do. And, of course, the hours in the day is always the big limitation. There's only so much you can do. But I think they're each very neat in their own ways. But Google Plus surprises me. And it reminds me a lot of my Twitter experience, where the first couple of times you go in, you look at it, scratch your head, think, you know, I don't get it, what's going on here, and you play with it, but, you know, whatever. And then you come back a while later, for whatever reason, you just see it in a different set of eyes. And I need to give a shout-out to a couple of people here. I think Chris Perillo with his Gnomies, the Locker Gnome. I think Chris is doing a fantastic job with all his energy and enthusiasm, and I don't know how he keeps up to the pace he sets. But I think he's doing a great job of winning a lot of people over to that whole side of it.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to watch. It's, you know, that's I think something that I've noticed that people haven't talked too much about on Google Plus is the heavy interaction with video. The big emphasis with video, and what that does for making people seem like real people that Twitter doesn't do. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that? Because Google Plus is so focused on big images and big video and Hangouts. What do you think this is doing? Is that good or bad for social media overall?
I think it's really good, but it's been a really interesting discussion as I've been telling other people about Google Plus. Because I think you really come there in a couple of different mindsets. And I've just recently finished reading, oh my gosh, mind's a blank now. My goodness, I can't believe I forget the name of it. I'll have to read in a second. But anyway, Paul Adams, Grouped, and great book at kind of breaking down how we deal with social media and how we interact online. And he makes some really good points drawn from a lot of research to show that as much as we may be connected to 50 or 500 or 5,000 or 50,000 people or whatever in social media, we still tend to interact with our very small inner circles.
Right.
You know, a huge majority of what we do on Facebook or anywhere usually is with the same people we probably connect with when we're offline. So as much as it opens up the world to us, we really are still fundamentally the same types of people with the same preferences for communicating that we had before we went online. And that's one of the things I found really coming to light when I talk to people about Google+. Because I've got a home office. I can get up in the morning, come down here with whatever I want on and sit here and work. And I don't have to shave for 4 days in a row if I don't want to, unless I got a meeting outside with a client.
Right.
It's kind of my own style. But I found I shave more since I'm on Google+, because you don't know if someone will pop up on a Hangout or something,
Yeah.
And you're a little bit more aware that, something might come up. And I find that intriguing. I like that. I like that ability to meet people more, to connect more.
Yeah.
But, I mentioned to some people on Facebook, and they say, well, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to, I didn't come online to meet new people and to be, thrust into that situation. So I think it's very much a matter of what you're comfortable with. And I think really that's where, Google+ won't overtake Facebook. Facebook won't wipe out Google+. In my mind, it's Pepsi and Coke. It's, one of these things we've seen 1,000 different times. They're very, very distinct. They have tremendous appeal depending on what you're looking for. And I don't think someone who loves Facebook is inevitably going to be drawn over to Google+, unless they are looking for that more interactive, more open way of meeting new people and connecting.
Right. Yeah, I think what you're saying there about meeting new people, that's been my biggest, plus for Google+. The biggest thing I've noticed is I get to meet people and not only interact with them like through 140 characters like I did on Twitter, but in a face-to-face environment, more or less. And along those lines with something we were talking about off of this Hangout, we were talking about cross-posting from Google+ to Facebook. Is the same content appropriate? And, to focus on what you would, let's kind of look at it from how you would tell a client rather than a person. Do you think, right for businesses to just post to one social network and do the same thing across the board? Or maybe occasionally do that? Or what are your opinions on that?
As a general rule, I don't think it's a good strategy. I don't think it will achieve a whole lot for you. For one thing, you're fairly likely to have the same audiences on all of them. I've got a lot of Twitter friends who are also on Facebook and who now are also on Google+. And I think they're going to get tired of seeing my same message 3 times. You start to look spammy pretty quickly, especially if you're talking about anything business related. But I have done it a few times, partly out of curiosity, because I want to explore that, and I want to see where do I get the bigger interaction. And I saw that, you may have seen the same post today from Lee Smallwood comes to mind, but I don't think that's the right name. But someone who had tried it because of this recent article that said, the typical Google+ user is on here for about 3 minutes a month. And then you also test them at the level of interaction you get on Google+. So he posted to Google+, put the same thing over to Facebook, got a much stronger reaction on Google+. And I find there are times I get that. There are times it's the other way around. I think a lot of it depends on the particular message and who happens to be on Facebook that day or whatever. But no, I like that ability to pick and choose your messages based upon who you're dealing with. I think you do have a more tech-savvy, more interactive, more gregarious kind of circle that you're going to have on Google+ typically than you're probably going to find on Facebook. But that may be my own particular experience. I don't know if it mirrors what you're saying or not.
Yeah, well, what I had said was that I don't tend to get very much interaction on Facebook from the kind of things that I would post on Google+. And that's partly because my following or friend group on each network is very different. Google+, these are mostly new people that I'm following because I like technology and I like to hear what they have to say about it. Whereas Facebook, it's people I grew up with or I knew from high school or college or I met at a bar one time 6 years ago. It's like stuff like that where it's almost they're not the focused kind of group that I've got on Google+. So I guess it's very different for me personally. But what I was also this kind of interests me, and I want to hear your opinion about it because you're a face to your business, in a way, and a lot of businesses don't have a good face. Like a real person who actually could sit down and answer questions to the average customer, Whereas I feel like if you had a customer who asked a question, you'd be there face to face. What, you know, when companies get bigger, how do they keep that personness to them? You know, I mean, can they effectively have a brand advocate who's a real human being and not just this guy behind the scenes who's posting on social networks?
Yeah, I think it opens up some real challenges. I've seen a few companies doing it fairly well if they have to expand beyond that single personality. Because really, unless you've got someone at the extreme top, you really can't hinge everything on someone who may or may not be with you in 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're paying that person a whole lot of money so that she or he is not going to go anywhere, and unless they really, really love that company and you trust the roots run very deeply, you've got to think pretty carefully before you let your personality be built on someone who simply may not be here. So I think there's wisdom in spreading it out a little bit. I'm trying to remember a company I dealt with just recently where they had 2 or 3 different people, and they weren't really high up, but you had a little bit of a cushion there at least, that, you know, they were each synonymous with the company, but if any one of them left, you wouldn't feel like the whole company had kind of dissolved.
Right.
But I think they've got to try to find that mix between a small enough number that you still feel like you're getting to know people, but without hinging everything on the one voice. Or else, like I say, you know, have your Dave Thomas kind of personality where you've got that one face as the name of the brand, and you know, really let that person handle it.
Yeah, I imagine that's tough with big companies, and I've never really worked with branding for big companies at all. You know, I work with YouLoop on a very small company with very few people, so it's not nearly as difficult to have a business. But I think that's an interesting challenge. So, you know, have any of your clients taken Google Plus and run with it? Have any of them started using it already?
No, not at this point. You know, I've had some discussions with companies looking at it and wondering, but no, at this point, have not put down a corporate presence anywhere. I mentioned earlier, giving a shout out to Chris Barillo. Also, just want to mention Kim Beasley. I've gotten to know Kim, and of course, you had Kim here a week or 2 ago. But Kim is a phenomenal person. I was really impressed with the knowledge she's got on Google+, and I feel like I'm learning from Kim all the time. And I think latching on to someone like that, you know, Kim Beasley, or someone who really has known Google Plus inside out, because I'm still new to it, I'm still learning a lot, and I'm learning a lot from Kim and from others, but I feel like Kim was one of the very first people in there. She really had her foot down early in it. She had a chance to build quite a following. She knows the inner details a lot more. So I think latching on to someone like Kim can do a lot for a company to really get themselves established. And I'm sure over time, you know, Chris Brogan's someone else who actually drew some heat for, you know, a kind of making some statements about, you know, being ready to show people how to use Google Plus when people were still saying, well, no one could possibly know how to use Google Plus yet. But Chris, I think, is on the ball. He's a very smart guy, and I think he does grasp things very, very quickly.
Well, it does crack me up when people already have their ebooks they wrote about using Google Plus. I'm like, the platform is barely finished, and it's not really finished, you know. So whatever. I'll leave that to them. I'm not criticizing.
I'm watching it pops up on the bottom of the screen here now in a second.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of their credibility. I'll put it that way. That's my editorializing for today. So that's really all I had prepared as far as questions go. But Christian, do you have audio on your? It looks like you're on mobile.
I do.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can't prepare today. I am mobile, but I brought the laptop.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Since the Google Plus guys haven't deemed enough of a priority to enable mobile on-air Hangouts for Google Plus yet, which I found out the hard way last week.
How are you, Christian?
Good. How are you, Lorne?
Well, good, thank you. Good to meet you.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm a regular of Carl's in this Hangout.
Yeah, Christian is one of my, I guess if you've got an inner circle, if I have an inner circle of Google Plus people, he's in there. He has been a weekly Hangout attendee for as long as I've done it, I think, and he's kind of one of my mentors in small business. So he runs a logistics company down in Atlanta.
Oh, really?
So
yes.
Yeah. So
I'm a big fan of Atlanta. I've been to Atlanta probably 30 times. I love that city. It's a wonderful, wonderful spot.
I love it too. I'm a transplant, so I love it too.
Yeah.
Yep. But we're happy to have you this week, and so along the same lines of the questioning that Carl was asking. So I agree with you that money is not enough when you're having somebody in a position of representing the brand of your company, whether you're a big enterprise or a small business. Obviously, in a small business, you have a little bit more flexibility and can direct a little bit better the passion. But what advice can you give to medium-sized to big-sized companies on how to foster that in-house brand person and how to create a culture of that comes across as actually loving or believing in the product and not just a paid position? Because one of the good things about social media is that you can pretty much tell right away when somebody's in it just for the money or whether they really do have a passion for the product or service that they're pitching.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Christian. And it's funny you say that because that was going to be my advice. You asked how they show themselves to look like they have a passion for it. I think the reality is they have to have that passion. Yeah, you can't put someone in that position of pushing or promoting a product or promoting someone's presence in social media if they don't have that passion themselves. And that's the advice I give to a lot of companies is, you want to get on there, you want to get involved with it, but if you're someone who doesn't relate well to people, if you're someone who doesn't like building relationships, doesn't like, connecting with people, you're going to have a tough time getting on there and establishing any kind of a winning personality in social media because it's boy, if there's any place where the mask wears thin quickly, it's in social media, and you just don't want to get on there saying something that you're not. So I think sincerity, like most things in life, really huge in social media. You've really got to truly believe it, truly be passionate for it, or else I think you're just getting yourself in trouble.
So if let's say I were a paying client, and somebody that has an idea of what social media is, and that every big company is doing it, but I need to either hire somebody or pick somebody for my team. How would you advise somebody on how to pick that perfect person for that position?
Yeah, that's a big question, and it was only yesterday I was talking to a company about that because it's scary how often companies will hand this off to the junior guy who just came on 6 months. What are we going to give this guy? He can't do much. We'll let him handle the Twitter account. So he gets something like this. And I mean, that's just giving someone the keys to the Porsche, on their first day on the job. And it's scary, but I see companies do it, and especially on Facebook, where you've got this whole issue with the admin having the ability to take control of that account. That it's scary how many companies just let someone junior take in that position because they don't have the space to put anyone senior in there. So I think it's got to be a priority level. I don't think you can. People will luck into anything, and some companies make it work, but I think you are really taking risks if you do try to allocate the company's personality to someone that you're just bringing in for that position. I think if you bring in if you have to bring in someone, I think you want to work with a consultant, and not just that because I'm a consultant, but I think the reality is if you're going to have to trust it to someone outside, rather than hire someone junior that you don't really know, at least bring in someone who's got a bit of a background, bit of a history, bit of a proven experience reputably handling company accounts so that the guy's not going to just disappear on you in 6 months' time or kind of go rogue on you when you don't expect it. I think there's got to be some kind of reasonable expectation that this person is dependable and is there for the long run. But as much as possible, I think it's important for companies to be genuine, to bring their personality from the senior level. And if you've got someone there who can comfortably, not every company has a Frank Eliason who can champion that. But as much as you can, I think it is important to get that high up in the senior management, and if at all possible, try to pull that talent from in-house and someone who's going to be with the company right from its very soul. But like I say, if you've got to go outside, then for goodness sake, don't go with someone junior that you just hired who you don't really know and don't know where they'll be in a year's time. You've got to pick someone who is reputable and there for the long run.
One thing I noticed from handling, I've been doing a lot of handling of ULoop's social media accounts now, and partly because I was kind of one of the only guys on the team who really got it and knew how to use it well, but partly just because I'm closer to a college age, and that's the market we're looking for, So a lot of it is understanding who your customers are, what they need, and then the other part that I notice is I get tons of questions about the errors that come up or the inner workings of it. So I agree with you there. Don't get somebody who just walked into the company and say, here, you're going to answer every customer support question that ever comes up, through social media, and you have to develop our brand without any, knowledge of how we work. So yeah. I'm with you on that. I think that's a dangerous mistake too.
Yeah, it's true. Sorry, go ahead, Christian.
So basically your advice is to pretty much work with a consultant to kind of train somebody senior in the organization until they feel comfortable enough, until they think they have a grasp on what the social media strategy is going to be. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Okay. And as long as you've got someone who's fairly erudite, who can, represent themselves fairly well, and if they've managed to work themselves into a senior position in a company, there's a good chance there's someone there who can do that. Then I think the bigger challenge is just finding someone who's got the time to do it. Because I still think a lot of companies have this idea that, okay, well, can you get us set up on Twitter and then we're all done, as opposed to recognizing this is your new way of life.
Well, basically, I guess we have to recognize also if the company would be better served to have a social media presence and not just be a me too while we have a Twitter and follow us on Google+. I guess that will be the first determination to see if it's appropriate for that particular company or that particular service to have I guess if you're in the service industry, you would be better served having a social presence, but once that's identified that it is appropriate, I guess if nobody in the organization has any experience with it, I guess a consultant will be appropriate in that instance.
Yeah, and I think even if someone has the experience, a consultant can still come in and lend some direction, identify some strategic openings where they can start to develop their personality and their positioning. Someone who has seen how other companies have done things, someone who can better understand just the role the social media can play than they might be able to do initially themselves. But while I think the consultant can certainly offer direction, I always recommend to companies that the personality should be theirs, their online presence should be their own. And to come back to the point you made, Christian, because it's a tough one. What if a company, for whatever reason, doesn't have that, either the resources in-house or the personality in-house to do it? Are they better off not being in social media? That's a tough call. I don't know if I'd say yes, they're better off to not be in social media, because the competition is going to be there. It is a huge place to be from a business strategy point of view, and I think virtually any company should be in social media at this point, barring the corner stores and the very, very tiny little companies that they just have no aspiration to rise above that.
Well, I'll break in there and say that I think those small companies have to watch their social media presence for other reasons. Who's talking about going in and having a bad experience at their restaurant? That can kill a tiny place when, say, one of the most influential people in a small town, talks on Facebook about how this restaurant's not good. That can be bad. That can be real bad. And so maybe just at least being aware of what's out there is at the very least Yelp reviews or whatever, something like that.
And I agree with you there.
Sorry, Christian, go ahead.
I agree with you there 100%, Carl, because I'm a logistics business. I do own a service-oriented store. Mm-hmm. And what really helped us is those reviews that customers leave on their Google Places and Yelp. We've seen a 1,000% increase in business this year alone, just from being pushed up on SEO, because Google is starting to take into account, how often customers leave you a review, and what the star level is on the reviews. So we've seen in the past 3-4 months, going from the second and third page to being, first to second on the top page when they're searching for that particular service. So I agree that those service type small businesses would benefit from having a social media presence.
Yeah.
And cultivating, and fostering, whatever comments the customers leave on there.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's hard to imagine a lot of companies that wouldn't have some benefit from social media. So I certainly recommend wherever you can, you get in there. There are a few companies I've talked to who are very tiny corner stores, like I say, in a small rural area. They're hoping to finish in a few years or whatever, and they're saying, well, should we be into it? In some extreme situations like that, if they've got limited resources, I have trouble recommending, you really need to be in social media. But, we're talking such a tiny percentage of businesses. Even companies that are small and think, well, there's no market here for social media. Still, like we were talking about earlier before you came on, Christian, there's just so many opportunities outside to expand and look at possibilities of exporting or bringing in new clientele even locally that they could be open up to from social media. It's hard not to recommend social media to virtually any company out there.
So there's,
especially speaking.
Oh,
go ahead.
Well, I kind of want to ask you about B2B social media use, because a lot of these, we're talking about small restaurants or small stores that are B2C. I think that in most cases they need to at least have some social media presence, even if it's not much. But B2B is one of those areas where it's maybe a little harder to define why they need a Facebook page. Say I'm a parts supplier for some company that makes, engines. Who's going to be talking about my parts supplies? It may not be many people. What do you recommend to those kind of companies, or do you usually say in certain cases yes, or what do you say to them?
I may be a little bit idealistic on this, but I still think there's a huge potential that social media and even Facebook will bring to those companies. Because we've all heard over the years how these guys want to go playing golf with the client, and they want to get out and go to the hockey game or the football game or whatever it is with your client. You get to know these guys on a social and on a personal level. What better way to start doing that, even across a continent or beyond continents, than through some of these connections that you make through social media. And it's incredible, the connections that you make, the ability to get to know people on a personal level, to have some heartfelt discussions about different things, and find you connect at points you never dreamed in a million years that you'd both be, High School Musical fans or whatever, whatever dark secrets you have down deep. But, it's incredible how people can connect on levels that you just would never have discovered in a business meeting, and build some great relationships there.
Well, to answer that...
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. I think it was...
Okay. Yeah, no, just going to say it really comes down to, to the old line about social media. It's all about relationships. It's all about getting to know each other, building a sense of trust and a sense of liking and being liked. And those are the people you want to do business with, whether you're B2B or B2C. You deal with the people you like and trust. And I just think social media is unparalleled in its ability to establish those foundations.
So social media, I'm hearing, is the new golf club where we can go meet with other business owners. But I think that's true. I mean, now that, almost everybody that is in the, populated first world at least uses one or more forms of social media. You can almost say that if you're going to sell a product to a real person, you can find them through social media, And so I think that's a good point, and I think businesses maybe are missing out on that to some extent.
And to add to that, Carl, and take, for example, a company called AirWatch, which is a company that I've been researching and have an article coming out tonight about on MinorityReport.com. And AirWatch MDM is a mobile security you know, cloud service. They have a enterprise appliance, but they're mainly a B2B a B2B provider. But they have a strong social media presence on Twitter, and not so much on Google Plus. But quite effectively, they communicate to their audience and discovery. I've seen small businesses retweeting them. That's why I'm writing the article. And mainly, they deal with the big enterprise, hospitals, IT departments, South by Southwest, the convention center, and providing mobile security to allowing their customers to bring their own devices, for their employees to bring their own devices, and allowing that application to be able to manage security on those personal devices that are also used for it. Their social media strategy has been quite effective. As a matter of fact, that's how I found out about them and how I had the interest in writing the article.
And my old friend Scott Anderson, who I haven't seen in a little while now, used to be a regular attendee. I don't know what happened.
My Fridays got filled up somehow, and I've always been getting the invites, but I've always wanted to come back, so I'm free today. So awesome.
Oh man, it's all good. Well, thanks for coming by, Scott.
Scott is busy late at night out there in drinking hangouts nowadays, calling you out.
No.
I have seen your videos you've got going though now. Scott is now trying to. I think he's becoming a YouTube celebrity.
I'm actually going to steer clear of that. We're just going to do that as a side thing, but I'm also starting an Android enthusiast on-air type discussion thing that we're going to do weekly. It's kind of a weekly cap of Android stuff. Kind of cool.
Well, let me know about that.
No, the videos are awesome, Scott. The videos are awesome, Scott. They're quite enjoyable.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Quite the movie stuff.
Where do we find you on YouTube, Scott? I haven't seen your stuff yet.
I'll make sure to send you that link.
Okay, I'll look forward to it.
So, did you get to catch any of the beginning of this, Scott, or are you just coming in to say?
Nope.
Hey? Okay.
Just jumped in. What we're talking about.
I'll introduce you. We're talking to Lorne Pike, who's the Canadian-sounding gentleman that just talked to you. He's up in Newfoundland, and we were talking about social media and kind of especially in his rural client base, which is kind of an interesting challenge to get them on board with what it is and how it's useful. So anyway, anybody else have any discussion topics though that we can kind of close out with? I got a few minutes before I got to run.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm working on that on AirWatch, having somebody from AirWatch, hopefully the CEO, come into one of your weekly as a guest.
Cool.
So I guess the article tonight is going to help do that with their PR. But it all ties into this topics that you've been having the past 6 weeks. You know how we've gone from Android development and how it applies to small businesses, social media strategies, and how corporate culture, and now we got to tie it all up with security. How do you secure all of these elements?
Yeah.
So like Lorne said, you don't have some junior member of the team run off with your with your accounts or your information and totally destroy your brand. So
yeah, that's actually that was one thing that I've been debating or trying to kind of think of who I can get on as a guest next, and I've gotten a lot of good marketing and social media people lately, and I'd like to get a couple go back to a couple real geeky people again.
Well, this will be it because they'll work across all the platforms: Symbian, iOS, BlackBerry, cool. Android.
Good. I like to have a good mix.
There's two levels of security here as well. One being that technical side of it, the geeky side, but then the other is what I just call the common sense side. Is like I say, don't give the keys to the guy you just hired 3 months ago who you never heard of, a month before that. and ask him to first represent the company, but second, have those passwords that he can then go around and remove the other admins, and, you know, what can you do? So yeah, just common sense on one level, and as well as that technical aspect.
Yeah.
The Ferris Bueller effect. Don't give your keys to the Ferrari to the valet.
There you go.
Right. All right. Well, guys, unfortunately I work every Friday, and so I've got to actually go back and do work. Well, you know, here at home. But it was really good talking with you, Lorne, and Christian. Good to see you as always, my friend. I will be in touch with both you guys through Google Plus soon, and I will hopefully have my interview from last week up on YouTube tonight. I will try to get that done before I call it a day. So.
Sounds good. Carl, I really appreciate the opportunity. Pleasure. Nice meeting you, Christian, and I'll look forward. Sorry, is it Chris or Christian?
I think he does either.
Oh, okay.
I've called him both.
I thought it was Christian earlier, but then I thought it was Chris. But anyway, good meeting you both. Carl, I do appreciate the time and wish you all the best.